After 734 days of war, the guns have fallen silent in Gaza. No more fireballs in the night sky, no more missile strikes, no more gunfights. Gazans and Israelis finally have a peace deal. The ceasefire is holding. All the hostages are back home in Israel, and hundreds of Palestinians have been freed from Israeli jails. It seemed impossible until recently. It has finally been achieved, and that's a good start. But what if I told you that this was the easy part? Ending the fighting and returning the hostages, this was the easy part. What comes next is uncharted territory. What comes after the peace deal? How will they maintain peace? How will they rebuild Gaza? What will it mean for the key stakeholders in this conflict? For Hamas, for Netanyahu, for the people of Gaza? What's in store for them? That's what we'll discuss tonight. But first, let's look at the situation on the ground. Let's look at what is happening in Gaza. People are returning to urban centers. Thousands are walking up the coastal road to Gaza City. And what will they find there? Most likely destroyed houses and buildings. Aid has also started coming in. On Sunday, some 173 trucks entered Gaza with food and medicines. What they need is 600 trucks every day. But again, it's a start. Over in Israel, families are still waiting eagerly. The 20 living hostages have been freed. But Hamas also held the remains of 28 deceased hostages, 28. 4 bodies were returned yesterday. The remaining 24 are yet to be handed over. This whole process is being handled by the Red Cross, and they say it will take time. It is tough to find the bodies in the rubble of Gaza. Meanwhile, Israeli troops have withdrawn. Let me pull up the map for you. Before the ceasefire, Israel controlled 80% of the Gaza Strip. That's the blue line you see inside the strip. Last week, they began pulling back from the blue line to the yellow line. This leaves around 55% of Gaza in Israeli control. The next withdrawal will come in the next stage of talks, which brings us to the question we set out to address. What happens next? Donald Trump's plan has 20 points. The first step is to create a new governing body. This will be composed of Palestinian technocrats, and guiding them will be a board of peace. A board that includes Donald Trump himself, also former British Prime Minister Tony Blair. They will oversee the rebuilding of Gaza, they will negotiate the Israeli withdrawal, and they will introduce reforms. When the time is right, they will hand over Gaza to the PA. That's the Palestinian Authority, the group that already governs the West Bank. Then comes the question of security. Who will police this war-torn strip? Trump's plan calls for an international stabilization force, sort of like a peacekeeping group. This will include soldiers from Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey. They will police Gaza, these soldiers. After this, Trump's peace plan scales up the ambitions. The plan talks about investments, special economic zones, and tariffs. As of today, we are very far away from all of that, so let's focus on the short term. What happens to Hamas? What will be their role? The plan requires Hamas to surrender, to give up their weapons, and to not rule Gaza again. It says Hamas should give up their political ambitions. That's what the peace plan says. But will they do it? Just look at what happened yesterday. Hamas fighters stood guard as the hostages were freed. They proudly flaunted their guns and gear. And the same thing happened today. Hamas fighters have fanned out across the Gaza Strip. They are reasserting their lost power. So when the time comes, will they surrender their weapons? Will they give up their political ambitions? And if they don't, what will Israel do? Prime Minister Netanyahu had vowed to destroy Hamas. If they retain their weapons, he may return to the battlefield. But if Hamas surrenders, they do have options. Trump's plan grants them amnesty. Their leaders can also leave Gaza if they wish to. On the other side, Netanyahu also faces a difficult test. Israel is slated to hold elections in October next year. If the peace holds, maybe sooner. Elections may come sooner. And the results may not favor Netanyahu. The Israeli parliament, or the Knesset, has 120 seats. If polls are held today, the opposition would win 59 seats, Netanyahu's bloc would win 51 seats, and the Arab parties could get 10. You need 61 seats to form the government. Chances are Netanyahu will be ousted if elections are held today. And that's just the start of his problems. Netanyahu is also facing corruption allegations in court. Until now, he used the war and his office to fight them. Without those, he faces an uncertain future. And Donald Trump hinted at that yesterday. He asked the Israeli president to pardon Netanyahu.
Hey, I have an idea. Mr. President, why don't you give him a pardon? Give him a pardon. Come on.
And what about the people of Gaza? They will be looking forward to living without fear. But as they say, peace is not the absence of war. It must also bring prosperity, stability, and that requires rebuilding Gaza. Around 83% of all buildings in Gaza have been destroyed, 83%. The war has left 55 million tons of rubble. That is 13 times the Pyramid of Giza. All that rubble will have to be removed first. Urban centers will have to be swept for bombs, and finally it must be rebuilt. And all of it will cost around $70 billion, $70 billion. The United Nations says it is confident that Arab and Western countries will step up. They may be able to rebuild concrete structures. But don't forget the emotional and human toll. Around 68,000 Gazans have been killed in the last 2 years. Hundreds of families have been torn apart. For them, a ceasefire will not bring normalcy. They will need time and care. And looming large over all these concerns is that of statehood, the question of creating a Palestinian state. This is presented as the end game in Trump's plan. But Trump himself is unsure about it. Listen to his comments yesterday.
I'm talking about rebuilding Gaza. I'm not talking about single state or double state or two state. We're talking about the rebuilding of Gaza.
What's the road ahead for governing Gaza?
Well, we have to see. I mean, a lot of people like the one-state solution. Some people like the two-state solution. So we'll have to see. I haven't commented on that.
Netanyahu feels the same. He has promised to fight the two-state solution. He says it would be like rewarding Hamas. Of course, the Arab countries feel differently. They know they have momentum on their side. They're using that momentum to push for a Palestinian state.
I reaffirm our support and aspiration for the implementation of this plan, creating the political horizon necessary for the implementation of the two-state solution, as it is the only way to achieve the legitimate aspirations of the Palestinian and Israeli people to end the conflict and live in peace.
So which way will things go? That could very well depend on Trump. Because these talks could break down at any stage, and if they do, Israel will want to return to the battlefield. Only Trump can stop that from happening. Same on the other side. Trump has considerable clout with the allies of Hamas. I'm talking about the likes of Qatar, Turkey, and Egypt. If they can pile on the pressure, Hamas may relent. These are conversations that will likely happen in the shadows, away from cameras, clicks, and pageantry. Very different from what we saw yesterday.